Oh, hey, it's me, your friendly neighborhood equestrian, currently peeling dried mud off my boots with a hoof pick because spring has arrived and so has the mud. Nothing says welcome to spring mud season like trekking down what you think is a solid trail just to hear that sound as your horse sinks into knee deep muck, and then hope you can maneuver your way out of it before it becomes a big mistake. Thanks to the questions that I'm seeing on RTR today, we'll cover the following topics to help answer some of them: how to pick the right trails, gear and hoof care to help you and your horse, how to ride safely through slick spots, and most importantly, how to keep our trails in good shape so we're not turning them into a swampy, rutted mess for the rest of the season. So grab your waterproof boots, your best balance, and let's dive in. Well, figuratively, not literally, because nobody wants that kind of a trail ride. Ah, spring. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining, and the trails, yeah, they're a slippery, hoof-sucking mess. And if you have ever watched your horse take their first steps into a muddy trail with the same level of trust as a cat being asked to take a bath, you know exactly what we're talking about. Muddy trails aren't just annoying. They can be dangerous and damaging to everybody involved, including the trails themselves. Have you ever tried walking across a freshly mopped floor in socks? Now imagine doing that with 4 legs at a trot. One wrong step in the deep mud, and suddenly your horse is challenging their inner ballerina in a move that is not part of the ride plan. Slips and stumbles can lead to muscle strains, tendon injuries, and worse. Not to mention it's exhausting. Deep mud equals extra exertion. Your horse might feel fine at the start of the ride, but after slugging through some sticky footing for miles, fatigue sets in fast. Imagine your winter barn fit self is on spring break walking through deep beach sands. That's what it's like for a horse. Some horses handle mud better barefoot, while others are going to need some shoes for grip. Either way, mud buildup in hooves can lead to issues like thrush or causing soles to be soft and allowing for bruising if you're not too careful. And every hoof print in soft, saturated ground pushes the mud around, widens the trail, leaves deep ruts, and hardens like cement when the sun comes out. And the result? A bumpy, uneven trail that is no fun for anyone. And when trails get churned up in mud season, the next big rainstorm can wash away the topsoil, leaving nothing but roots, rocks, and a headache for everybody. So keeping trails in good shape is going to equal fewer repairs for park staff and happier multi-use visitors. We've been there. You see a huge mud puddle in the middle of the trail. So you, or your horse, steer off to the side. And so does everybody else. And then the next thing you know, a single track path is suddenly 6 feet wide, and a once healthy section of trail is now a permanent swamp. Instead, do everything you can to actually walk through that puddle and not around it. It's a better idea to stick to the drier trails during mud season. When you can, ride smart, ride light, and do your part to keep the trails in good condition for the season ahead. Spring trail selection is a delicate game. You're going to pick the wrong one, and you'll spend the next 2 hours dodging puddles, praying that the ride would end with all the shoes on, and having one heck of a cleanup job after. The key to keeping things safe and enjoyable is knowing where to ride, and the more importantly, where not to ride, until that ground firms up. Greenways, rail-to-trails, some of your best options in the spring thaw. Genesee Valley Greenway, Lehigh Valley Trail, Ontario County Pathways. These offer some solid footing, minimal mud, and they make a great choice when other trails are still drying out. Not to mention, they're fantastic for conditioning your horse and getting them back into trail shape for the steeper sections. For those that are itching to get back onto the trails themselves, Mendon Ponds Park can be a solid choice, but with a caveat. Thanks to its glacial fill, the higher elevations tend to dry quickly and provide relatively firm footing. However, the trails closer to the ponds and lower areas need more time. Riding through them too soon can leave those deep foot craters that take months to smooth out. so it's best to avoid them until the conditions improve. And while we're on the topic of Mendon Ponds, let's be clear. Stay away from Devil's Bathtub. This trail is off limits to horses for a reason, and unfortunately, we've already had a local rider required emergency rescue after her horse got stuck in that sludge. Don't risk it. Stick to the designated trails that are safe for equestrian use. And on the flip side, there are some parks that hold on to mud a little bit longer and should be left alone until they have a chance to firm up. Watka Creek, Northampton are two areas that tend to stay wet for weeks after heavy rains or snowmelt. Just avoid the mud and sludge and leave these trails off your riding list for a little while longer. Similarly, New York State DEC parks often have seasonal trail closures for horses, typically keeping them off the trails until May and then closing again in October. If you're unsure, always check with the park manager's guidelines before heading out. And as tempting as it may be to dodge those muddy sections by going off trail, it's important to resist. Cutting around the muddy areas widens paths, damages fragile ecosystems, and accelerates the erosion, making it harder for the trail to recover. If a section is truly impassable, it's best to turn back and just choose another route or another day rather than risk turning that single-track path into a swampy mess. If you're ever in doubt about conditions, don't be afraid to ask. The Rochester Trail Riders Group is a great resource for real-time trail reports. Sharing updates on which trails are holding up and which are still too muddy helps everyone make a better riding choice and keeps our favorite trails in good shape for the season ahead. And picking the right trail in the spring isn't about avoiding a messy ride. It's about keeping both you and your horse safe while protecting the trails we love. Choosing wisely, and you'll be rewarded with a much more enjoyable ride and far less cleanup after. Muddy footing can be tricky for both horse and rider, so let's talk about it and how to navigate it safely and minimize that risk while still enjoying your ride. Riding in mud isn't just about balance. It's also about being prepared for whatever spring weather throws at you. Footwear matters. If you ever tried walking through a muddy field in slick-soled shoes, you know one wrong step can turn into an unpredicted slide. Waterproof boots with good tread are a must. If your boots don't have grip, be a little careful when dismounting, unless you want to experience that surprise mud bath. Dress in layers is key for spring weather because it can't make up its mind. You might start the ride chilly, then suddenly feel like it's midsummer, only to find out the wind kicked up and remind you that Mother Nature is in charge right now. Lightweight, moisture-wicking layers will keep you comfortable no matter what the weather decides to do. Plan to ride slower than usual. Muddy trails demand more careful approaches. Speed increases the risk of slipping and sliding, but it also takes a heck of a lot more physical effort. This isn't the time for gallops or sudden turns. Take it slow and steady. Finally, don't forget the emergency prep. Muddy conditions mean a higher chance of unexpected dismounts. And even if you ride like a pro, your horse might need a little help. Always carry a fully charged phone, a basic first aid kit for both you and your horse, and extra gear like a hoof pick and an easy-to-carry lead rope. So that way, if you do get into trouble, you're going to be glad you came prepared. And mud doesn't just make riding harder. It challenges your horse's stability, energy, and overall comfort. Knowing how to manage their footing and conditioning can make all the difference in keeping them sound and happy. If your horse is shod, be mindful of the mud buildup around the shoes. This can create pressure points and add discomfort. And no matter what, check their hooves after every ride. Clear out all that debris to help prevent issues like thrush. Mud is physically demanding, so ease yourself into spring riding. Even if they're fit, plowing through mud takes extra effort, which can lead to fatigue much faster than normal footing. Watch for signs that they're working harder than usual. Shortened strides, heavy breathing, reluctance to move forward, and just adjust your ride accordingly. Mud is also a risk of soft tissue injuries. If your horse suddenly sinks into a sticky patch, it puts extra strain on their tendons and ligaments. One bad step can lead to a pulled muscle or strained suspensory, so avoid forcing them through the deep or uneven footing. Save that good ride for another day. And once the ride's over, take a couple extra minutes for post-ride care. Mud sticks to everything, and if it's left unchecked, it can lead to skin irritation, scratches, mud fever. Rinse off your horse's legs, check for small cuts or scrapes, dry them well, especially the fetlock and pastern areas. That's where moisture can build up and cause bacterial infections. A little post-ride attention goes a long way for keeping your horse comfortable. Mud season doesn't mean avoiding riding altogether. It just means making smarter choices. With the right gear, pace, and awareness, you and your horse can get out there and enjoy the trails while minimizing the risk. Ride smart, keep your footing, and most importantly, stay out of the deep stuff. And if there's one thing we all love, it's having access to great trails. You know what can ruin them for the season? Riding when they are too wet and fragile. Trail systems don't maintain themselves. A little awareness and respect go a long way into keeping them safe, accessible, and enjoyable for all users. First and foremost, respect trail closures. If a park or land manager has marked trail as closed, especially if it's due to mud, it's not because they're trying to ruin your fun. They're just trying to make it so that there's no long-term damage that could take months or even years to fix. Ignoring closures doesn't just create a mess. It can get equestrian access permanently restricted in some areas, and nobody wants that. If you're going out on open trails, stick to the middle of the path. It can be tempting to ride along the edge to avoid the muddy section, especially your horse, who might not like mud. But doing this is going to widen that trail, and it's going to accelerate the erosion. Even if it means getting a little dirty, stay centered and minimize that impact, even in your horse's protest. If you come across damaged trails, down trees, or washed out paths, don't just ride past them and hope that somebody else deals with it. Report that trail damage to the appropriate land manager, park office, or local trail club. Many of our riding trails are maintained by volunteers, and knowing where the help is needed makes it easier for them to get in good shape. And speaking of volunteers, consider getting involved in trail maintenance. Most trails rely on a small but dedicated group of people who clear debris, improve drainage, and repair damage so we all can keep riding. If you enjoy the trails, give back, even if it's just for a couple hours. This can help ensure that they stay open and accessible. It's a great way to meet other riders, support your local horse community, and keep your favorite trails open and in top condition. If you're looking for a perfect way to give back, here are two great opportunities coming up. New York State I Love My Park Day is on April 4th. This is a statewide event, and it's an opportunity to help out at places like Letchworth State Park or the Genesee Valley Greenway. I'll add a link in the show notes so you can sign up. The other day is Monroe County's Pick Up the Park Days. This is April 12th. And I would love to see Rochester Trail Rider members at all of the big parks we ride in. Let's show our community that equestrians do care, and you can sign up today at the link in the show notes. At the end of the day, preserving trails is a shared responsibility. Every rider's choices add up. So remember, spring riding is all about finding the balance between getting back in the saddle and keeping our trails in good shape. Mud season can be tricky, but with the right trail choices, safety precautions, and respect for the land, we can enjoy the season without causing damage or risking injury. Remember, our trails don't take care of themselves. The more we ride, the more we should give back. Whether it's by volunteering at a trail workday, picking up trash on your ride, or simply making smarter choices to protect the land. Events like I Love My Park Day and Pick Up the Parks Day are perfect opportunities to show that equestrians care about the spaces we ride in. And I would love to see RTR members out there making a difference. If you found today's episode helpful, Make sure to like, share, and leave a 5-star review. It helps more trail riders find us. And the more we grow, the more we can do to support our local equestrian community. As always, respect the trail, wear a helmet, and show up for your trails the way they show up for you. Happy trails!